Welcome. Welcome to a special episode of Hedgehog Watchdog. We are doing a special. Usually I'm joined by my co host, Devin Saxon. He is behind the scenes producing tonight because we are doing a Libertarian Party Region 6 roundtable discussion tonight. And I'll just real quick run through who's here. We got Jared Wimmer from the Nebraska chair. Mike Connor from Iowa, the chair. Dalton Brown from North Dakota, the chair. New chair Tony Moen from Wisconsin. Steve Seuss from Illinois is the chair, and Robin Dominic from Missouri is the vice chair. Chris Holbrook from Minnesota, he's the only other chair in our region. He might pop in. He had some stuff going on tonight. Um, just real quick, the first question I'd probably pose, we'll just go around. We'll try to keep it a little bit organized because we have so many people on the podcast. It kind of can get a little bit messy. But we'll just kick it off with Jared, and we'll just kind of go down the row. When and how did you become a libertarian? And then maybe walk us through how you became the chair and how long you've been the chair. Oop, Jared, I think you're muted.
I'm a good lip reader if you guys want me to help.
Yeah, we don't have you, Jared. We'll come. Or now it says you're muted. Not sure. Here we'll go to Mike, and we'll come back to Jared.
Fantastic. Mike Connor, Chairman Mike, as a lot of people here in Iowa like to call me. I have been a libertarian since 2015. I was always kind of leaning that way as a Republican. However, we was very, I think probably a lot of people would feel the same way, very disenchanted with their former parties. And that's ultimately what drives them to the Libertarian Party. Some people are born into it, but very few. Most of it is a disenchantment. As far as a reason why, it's because our wonderful former governor, Terry Branstad, a Republican that by all means should be against tax cuts, decided to greatly increase our fuel income, our fuel tax for when you're getting gas and stuff. And even though there was a lot of things that led up to it, that was a final straw for me. That very day, I re-registered as a libertarian, and I've been one since. As far as the chair, I've been in the chair since Leap Day of last year, February 29th. I've been it's been quite an experience. I've always been passionate. I've worked on the Central Committee here in Iowa as a second district rep prior to that, and of course worked at the county level as well. So I think it's exciting to be able to have the opportunity to help mold and grow the Libertarian Party and liberty in general here in the state. And we're seeing a lot of exciting things that's happened just in the last year or so.
All right, well, thank you. Dalton, same question.
All right. I guess I never really considered myself a libertarian until quite recently. In a lot of ways I did, but I didn't. I grew up in a divided household. My mother's side of the family was very Republican, and my father's side was very what you would call Southern Democrats. So just growing up, I heard a lot of discrepancies and things that didn't really make sense from the left and the right. And it wasn't until my wife became pregnant with my first son that I really started to get involved with the Libertarian Party. And I got really upset at how much money my unborn child owed the federal government before he was alive. And that was really my driving force behind it. I've been involved with the Libertarian Party since 2018. I became the state chair in 2019, and I've been a state chair ever since. And it's been amazing to watch how politics has changed over the last few years, and just the discussion behind it. And I've seen people from the left and from the right begin to ask questions, and I couldn't be happier to be a part of that in a fight for a world set free in our lifetime.
Sounds good. Thank you. Tony Moen?
Yes, sir. So I guess was born a libertarian but didn't know it. My dad was a conservative. My mom was an anarchist, non-political, very against government, pretty much in every step of the way. I was actually raised on the story that my grandfather didn't pay income taxes for 15 years. The federal government came after him, though, so it wasn't a pretty story. But he still, refused, because he said if people were able to come into this country and get a full ride from our government, why was he paying for it? And, that was kind of the thing that stuck with him. But growing up, I was one of those people that didn't really fit into either bubble. Barack Obama came to my high school when I was 18. It was my year I was going to be graduating and voting for the first time. I got to meet him, and at the time, being wrapped up in the liberal leftist arts schools and everything of Northeast Iowa, I was, kind of conditioned to think that he was, the hope in the future. And so I voted for him, my first one out. 2 years into it, everything that he had promised, everything that I hated the right for, he was still doing and partaking in. And I was like, this is a big game. I'm not going to vote anymore. My mom had it right. So I just kind of backed out. And then when I met my wife and, we had our children, it became this new idea of like, we need to do something in the world. We need to do something because our kids now, are our responsibility, and we're leaving this world to them. And so we started kind of looking into the political field more. And I had heard through different channels and such about Ron Paul and libertarianism and in the political organization of libertarianism. So we kind of looked into that after, we saw the rise of Trumpism and everything in 2016. And Gary Johnson was running. We started just doing little things for around the county, dropping off pamphlets and stuff like that. And then, obviously Trump won. And over the last 4 years, we've all just seen this steady decline of society in our country. And then when Joe and Spike stepped up this last election cycle, and they were chosen as the nominees, we were very inspired, especially by Spike, because he carries this message of action. And so we were very inspired to actually start stepping up and doing something. So around our county, we started becoming very vocal. We started doing a lot of different work going around and, door hangers and sign waving and everything, you name it. It started getting the attention of the LPWI. They said, hey, they reached out to us and said, we don't have an affiliate in your county. Would you guys like to be? So we were like, yeah, absolutely. And they held the meeting. They agreed we could be an affiliate. A week later, they asked if we would speak at Joe Jorgensen's rally in Oshkosh. And that was just like mind boggling to me because, that she's the presidential candidate. So we went and did that. It was an amazing experience. Throughout the summer, we were very involved with the campaign. Joe came back to Wisconsin 3 times total. We were involved with every single one of the events. It was really cool, to get to really be part of something bigger in the movement. And then, after the election, we just continued because we, like everybody else, this election cycle, it seems like that's one of the most beautiful things, this election cycle. Libertarians aren't waiting till the next election now. Like everything's still continuing. That momentum is still building forward. And we felt it too. So we just kept steamrolling along. And then the current chair, or the previous chair of the LPWI, the current chair at the time, Matt Buffman, had reached out to me and said, I'm going to be taking a different role in the Libertarian Party. I really love the activism that you've been involved with. I think, you might be a good option to step up to this role. Would you be interested? And everything inside of me was like, this is crazy, but I think this is exactly what I would like to do. So for the last 4 or 5 months, I've been developing a plan of action of everything that I wanted to institute as soon as I became chair. And then literally just 2 weeks ago, I guess actually 1 week ago at this point, we held our convention, and to a 51-10 vote, I was elected as the chair of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin. So here I am.
It's also worth noting, you did hear him say he's from Iowa. So you guys are actually outnumbered by Iowans in this.
That's pretty good. So was yours a contested race then?
There was another gentleman who stepped up to run against me, and let's just say I carried a better message of unity, and so that's just what won out. That's really it.
All right, sounds good. Steve Seuss, how and when did you become a libertarian?
Well, my name's Steve Seuss. I'm the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Illinois. It's fine. Literally everyone says Seuss. It's not a big deal. So I was always, what the folks in libertarian circles call a small L libertarian. Fought for causes, generally had libertarian philosophical views, but was not involved with the party until around 2016. It was the summer of 2016. It was, I was somewhat inspired by Gary Johnson and Bill Weld together, but I was just as equally like unenthused about any of the other choices, and that's what got me involved in the LP. I joined my local affiliate and signed up online or whatever. The very next day, the chairman of the state party called me and wanted me to start doing volunteer work. And as many of you know, once you start doing volunteer work as a libertarian, generally people are just going to keep asking you to do more volunteer work. So, a few years later, here I am. I've been the chair in Illinois here for the last year and a day. Actually, I started May 1st in 2020, which was an interesting time to start as chair. We were in the middle of a lawsuit because of ballot access and all sorts of different things that were going on at the time. So that's kind of my path to the Libertarian Party. It was through Liberty philosophy, but it was that 2016 election that got me involved in the party itself. So.
All right, sounds good. Robin, you're next. The question, I don't know if you missed it, but just generally, when and how did you become a libertarian? And then maybe tell us how you became the vice chair of the Missouri party.
Well, I slowly came to libertarianism after I got out of the Army. I know a lot of people say that they find libertarianism and then within 6 months they're an ANCAP. It took me several years. I had a lot of deprogramming to do, especially military related. So I had several small red pills, just seeing how much we were wasting money and things. I think I finally came around to realize that our current government is pretty illegitimate when they murdered Chris Dorner in Los Angeles. I was like, there's police going out and shooting another former police officer with no due process. They're shooting the wrong people. I want to say 2 or 3 other people were shot when they were looking for him. And then they cornered him in a house and burned him alive. I couldn't even believe it was really happening. But I tried to stick around hoping to support Liberty Republicans for a while. And when Donald Trump won the nomination, I was like, wow, this is, I don't know what world I'm living in right now. So I came to the Libertarian Party. I was all excited about Austin Peterson, and then Gary Johnson got, and I was like, well, I can live with that. And over the past couple of years, I've slightly outgrown Austin Peterson's version of libertarianism too. And I've gone down to agorism, where I occasionally scare my husband with my anti-government rants. As for becoming vice chair, it was very accidental. So our previous vice chair made some unfortunate comments on Facebook, kind of like
I remember that, yeah,
a little bit of Arvin there. And while I very much believe he was trying to argue in good faith, he was really not good at it. And then he made some jokes that didn't catch, and people were calling his boss and calling us and tagging people. It was just a big mess. And so he decided he'd step down. And our chair and our secretary and our executive director all messaged me saying, hey, do you want to be the vice chair? And I was like, I don't know what they do. Do you think I can figure it out? And they're like, oh, sure, it's easy. And it mostly has been. I think the biggest responsibility for the vice chair was previously to plan the convention, which I did, and everyone seems to think I did a good job. But now that has gone back to a committee, so that way if, like, let's say I got sick or I got in a car accident and I was halfway through planning the convention and then nobody else could step up to make changes because it was currently, before last week, it was my responsibility. So now I'm just back to doing activism. I'm trying to help the counties get affiliated. I want to go through our entire membership list and contact members who haven't been to any meetings or anything, be like, hi, you're in this county and there's like 6 other people in your county. Do you want to get together and have occasional meetings, or just do you want to know who the other people in your county are? Do you want to get involved in any way? Or if you just want to be a member and only vote, that's cool too. But just try to reach out to people to let them know that we, want to do things as a state.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. We'll circle back. Jared, maybe the audio is working.
Try again.
Jared,
Nothing.
you're good. Yep, you're good.
Anyway, back to being a libertarian. Nebraska's very red. If anybody knows anything about Nebraska, corn and red. So I went back and forth between being a nonpartisan member or a Republican, so that way at least you have a say in the primaries. But that just wasn't really happy. It didn't seem to make much of an impact anyway, and very frustrated with, if you have a better fiscal policies, but you're willing to throw away votes for these social issues that, even then, what point, it doesn't matter to me, somebody's personal choices, they have to be their own thing. So finally, when I think the Republican primary, when Trump won, that is when I like, all right, I'm done. I'm out of here. Started getting involved locally with, my wife dragged me into it first with working on the Gary Johnson campaign, meeting some local libertarians there. And then I lived in the capital, Lincoln, Nebraska, which is the second largest city in the state. We didn't have a local affiliate. So we got that started up. And after that, things just spiraled out of hand, basically. We had our convention, not this February, the previous February, just before the COVID outbreaks. So that was just good planning by our convention committee to get a prior to candidates, trying to get people in, get them in for training. So we want to have it early. And so we dodged a real bullet with that. So we had our convention unhindered. We had 3 different people who wanted to be chair. So that was a sign of growth, I think. I won it. So now figure out what to do after that is just continue our growth, build local affiliates. It's really county driven as opposed to state. So try to support them as opposed to, tell everybody what they need to do and how to march things. So like most of your states, pretty long states. So there's a lot of travel, meetings, talking, messaging back and forth, trying to get that going and just drag more and more people in with us.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. So I guess for me, kind of similar stories and a little bit with all of you. It's, I kind of grew up in a Democrat household, kind of, and then post 9/11 kind of went through this weird patriot phase, dabbling with republicanism, I guess. And then after, 7-8 years of war, constant war with no real victories or, I don't know, point to it, I kind of was searching for something else. And back then I used to watch a lot of Fox News, and there was a guy on there. His name was Judge Napolitano, and he used to always be on there. And he used to always talk about libertarians. And so I got on the website, and I was like, oh, there's a party. There's a libertarian party. And back then you could go to their website, and they'd send you a trifold brochure to your house or whatever. And it just kind of real basic planks of the party, pro Second Amendment, against taxation, things like that, and I really liked that pamphlet. So at work, I was like showing everybody, and oh, look at this. This is great. And so I registered libertarian in 2009, but I never got involved with the state party until 2016. I had voted for Gary Johnson in 2012, and then when he was running again in 2016, I was like, yeah, this is great. Let's try to get involved. And the old saying, as Daryl even mentioned in the comments, is that if you show up to a convention, you're going to leave with a job. So, there you go. If you attend, you will get a position. And so that's basically 2016. I took a position in the party, and I did not become chair until April, or it was March. All right, sorry. So I've been chair for about a month and a half now, and part of the reason I wanted to get us all together, I figure not only can we get to know each other a little bit, but there's got to be things that I can learn from you guys, or maybe we can all learn from each other, and so that's kind of the point of this conversation. Nothing real groundbreaking or anything. Just kind of get to know you and maybe best practices, things that are working in your state, things that aren't. So the second question, pretty easy, because I don't know a whole lot about anyone else's states. How many registered libertarians do you have in your state, and how many elected libertarians do you have? And we'll start with Jared and just kind of go down the row.
Just over 18,000 registered, and I think 2 elected officials right now, both at city council.
What's the population in Nebraska again?
3 million.
All right. So you guys, I mean, compared, just relatively comparing numbers, South Dakota has about just under 900,000 people, and we're only sitting at about 2,500 libertarians. So you have about 3 times the population, but you're doing really good on the registered libertarian part, I think.
One edge that we've got is I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Laura Ebke. She was a state senator, and she was able to get a bill through. So if we have 10,000 registered people in any party, then you have ballot access. So we don't have to get names signed up. We don't have to do petitioning and balloting to get our access. Yeah. So we can just run people and focus on growing.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot.
That helps a lot too. In 2018, we won a lawsuit. The ACLU, the Constitution Party, and the Libertarian Party of South Dakota all sued the state. And so we get to nominate our candidates at our state convention. So if we don't want to go out and petition and gather signatures, unless it's a local race, we don't have to. And then the other nice thing is, as long as in a statewide race we get above 2.5%, we maintain that ballot access. So even though Jo Jorgensen didn't do as well as Gary Johnson this year, she still technically was above that 2.5% threshold. We had a couple state candidates too. Devin Saxon, the producer behind the scenes, he got 5% in his statewide race, which was pretty good. But all right, we'll go to Mike. How many libertarians do you got and elected?
Well, I actually haven't got our email from the Secretary of State that tells us the number as of May, but as of April 1st, it was 15,475 total. Number of elected officials are sitting at about 8. Hopefully, we have a couple different lawsuits going on right now, as you were kind of talked about a little bit. This is most specifically with ballot access. Republicans like to play some games. Surprise, surprise. So we are working to try to help us be able to get more candidates involved, and hopefully we can get those lawsuits settled. So that way it's going to be in our favor. You're on mute, Greg.
Sorry about that. All right, Robin.
I wish I could tell you the answer to that. I do know that we got 49,000 votes for governor. So I would guess that that's approximately how many people we have as libertarians, but that's obviously not how many people we have in the party. But we also have open primary, so you don't have to register for any party at all. You can just take whatever ballot you want in the primary and then, again, vote however you want in the general anyway. And I don't believe we currently have anyone. We may have somebody in the city council. I'll have to ask the ex-director, but I don't know. Sorry.
No problem. I think you're kind of similar to South Dakota as far as, to my knowledge, we do not have any elected libertarians here either. It's definitely something I'd like to see. We haven't really focused on local races in the past, and that's definitely something I think we should probably do in the future. Tony, go ahead.
So Wisconsin is a nonpartisan registration state, so you can't register as a libertarian. But there was approximately 38,000 votes for Joe Jorgensen last election cycle. Granted, obviously those aren't all straight libertarians. As far as the party, though, goes, I mean, one point of importance is that this last convention, there was roughly 100 people at our convention, and over half of them were brand new to the party. This is their first convention, first year as libertarians. So there's a really cool growth happening, at least in our state. And as far as elected libertarians go, we have one, Brian Defferding, who is a town or a board county member. And then there's two that are non-active. They're not active with the party, but they are libertarians that are also elected. But there's a couple more that are going to be running down by the guy who is elected. I'm going to be running in 2022 for county board supervisor. My wife's running for city council, and we got a congressman that's going to be running in 2022 as well. So good things coming.
Yeah, very nice. Good luck. Good luck in all that. Steve from Illinois.
Yeah, so like Wisconsin, Illinois does not have party affiliation attached to registration. So, who knows how many, but we're looking at around 66,000 votes for Jorgensen in November. And the Illinois situation with ballot access is really tricky too, because of how strict our statewide ballot access figures are. We've kind of taken a piecemeal approach, and now we're trying to get established in as many counties as possible, which has been an interesting journey. As far as how many elected libertarians we have a couple handfuls, including a few wins just a few weeks ago. Illinois does their what they call consolidated elections. It's municipal, township, a school board, basically everything that's not county or state or federal office. They do their elections in early April. So probably the highest profile there was Sasha Cohen, and Sasha's been somewhat of a libertarian personality online, so you may have seen or heard from him. But Sasha's now the city clerk in DeKalb, Illinois. DeKalb is not necessarily suburban Chicago. It's close to Chicago. It's where Northern Illinois University is, but it's a municipality of more than 40,000 people. So that's probably our highest profile office, but there's 10 to 15 other elected libertarians around the state.
Nice. Dalton, how's North Dakota?
Well, as far as North Dakota goes, there is no system in place for voters to register. We don't register to vote here, which I think is fantastic. Essentially how it works is if you have a valid ID and you're a citizen of North Dakota, you can vote. So you don't have to tie yourselves to the Republicans or the Democrats or Libertarians, whoever, which I think is fantastic. The only problem with that is in our primary races, you can only vote by party lines. You can't vote across party boundaries, which is definitely not a good thing in my opinion. We actually don't have any elected libertarians, which blows my mind because we have libertarians all across the state everywhere. We do have a sort of libertarian caucus in the GOP in North Dakota, the Bastiat caucus. And they do tend to press some sort of watered down libertarianism in the GOP. It's not perfect, but it's the best we got right now. As far as plans moving forward, we're always, looking for candidates and trying to push forward and boost infrastructure. But right now, it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, definitely something to learn about every state. Like I said, didn't realize you didn't even have to register to vote in North Dakota. That's pretty cool. South Dakota, one thing we run into where it kind of sets us back is every couple years the Secretary of State does a voter purge where if you didn't vote in say the last two elections, they'll remove you, place you on basically inactive or whatever. But then they'll remove those numbers from us. So, we're kicking and screaming for our numbers that we do get, and then all of a sudden you come in and you kick 100 people off. It hurts. But so each state affiliate tends to be unique and deals with various challenges. and some of you kind of touched with ballot access and stuff. What sort of challenges does your state party have, and and then a follow up maybe. What's the greatest difficulty you've had since being chair? Anything particularly tough, challenging about chair, or just your party in general in this state? We'll start with Jared again.
Ooh, special challenges. I don't know if that Nebraska has anything unique to us in that regards. Like I said, we've got some bonuses with our ballot access, outreach. It's just remarkable how, and when you try to grow and then you still wander out in the wild, like, oh, what's a libertarian party? Or somebody's like, oh, I'm a libertarian. It's like, well, you're not registered to join on up. So I think that's really typical of the LP. We get in our own little echo chamber so much that we don't realize how big our impact is or how big our scope is, who even knows. And we're all involved in paying attention to politics. So we think that maybe everybody does that, but it's just not true. Most people just want to get on with their lives. So that's, I guess, generic libertarian challenge. Biggest challenge of this year, like I said, luckily we dodged the COVID problem with our convention. One thing that was sort of cool, and like I know there's so much changeover in the state chairs across the LP. When we were trying to figure out how to work out, do we have an online only, mixed? There was a hot mess. But actually the state chairs, we started just talking with each other and like, all right, let's put out some ideas, put out some resolutions. And all the conversations were really productive, helpful. And, as a nationwide party, we got it done. So
it just took forever, but we got it done.
It did take forever. I did not go to the convention. I was like, there's lots of people that want to be. We actually previously, had to get ringers in to take our slots. Like, if you were interested in going to the convention for Nebraska, you can.
Yeah.
This year we had more interested people than we had slots. So it's like somebody else can go, somebody with more experience, more desire to go and hang out there. And instead, that was 2 different slots of just insane amounts of messaging, emails, phone calls, Zoom meetings, whatnot, just to make sure everything went down, and it got done. So when you said today about herding cats, when it comes down to it, we can actually get stuff done and function, not just at the state level, but nationally. So that was a positive.
For sure. Mike, we'll go on to you, and I'll be back in 1 second.
Absolutely. Obviously, I already mentioned the ballot access in terms of the Republicans and Democrats, for that matter, and I'm not just going to leave it up to them, wanting to try to spoil or call us spoilers and try to spoil our fun. But so I'm not going to go into that. I think probably the biggest issue that we have as far as the state party goes, looking outside of that, is, and I'm sure Jared can attend and speak to this as well, the rural counties, getting out to those rural areas. We have a 39, I want to say 39 affiliated counties currently out of our 99. The large majority of them are all centered around metropolitan areas, or at least within 25 miles of a metropolitan area. So that's our biggest issue. That's something that has been a big focus for us, and doing outreach to try to grow those parties, and it's been successful. I started out with 33, and we've already gained 6, as well as at least another 10 that are right there on the edge. So that's where we're at as far as the party. For me, my biggest thing was getting signatures for Joe. We had to get 1,500 signatures, which means that we actually had to get about 2,500 because you have to have that little bit of cushion. So that was the biggest thing to do that during the COVID era, getting out there. And really it was about doing outreach and getting out to people and saying, I'll mail you a form, or you can download the form from our website. Get a signature, get your family signatures. Even if you send one, I don't care what you can send in. We actually were represented by 72 of our counties, I believe, in Iowa with signatures, which was outstanding. People sending them in from all over, and with as many as people having 120 signatures on total for their petitions. So it was a huge challenge, but we were able to accomplish it. We still are fighting for that major party status, but I think that we are at least having getting a good foothold on where we go from here to be able to obtain that.
Yeah, good luck with the lawsuit and everything there. For sure, it's hard to grow as a party when you can't even have consistent ballot access. That's for sure. Robin, we'll go to you.
Well, we're lucky that we still have ballot access for now. Hopefully that will keep it for at least the next few years, and we can grow the party more to keep it. Like you, we're trying to get more counties affiliated. That has just got to be the best way to get people interested, because when they see local meetings, they bring a friend, and when people know that you only have to show up maybe once a month for a couple hours, you hang out, you have drinks, you have lunch, whatever it might be, you're going to get a lot more activity. And then from there, it makes it easier to know who's in your area to try to do volunteer activities. Like I want to get people interested in illegally patching potholes and collecting food and toys and things for charitable activities, just do stuff around our area. But as far as challenges, well, we have an influx of new people coming in. And while I'm thrilled about it, there's some people in the party that are less thrilled about it, and they've made it very known. And I'm just trying to make sure that we welcome the energy and the drive and the motivation of these new people, and we temper it with the maturity and the experience of the people who've been in the party for a lot longer than us. There's a lot of great activists in Missouri that have been in the party longer than I've been alive. So I don't want them to get mad and leave, but I also want the new people to feel welcome here. And if they're not 100% libertarian, we can help them. I wasn't either. I was a neocon just 10 years ago. So people learn and change and grow. So I want to make that environment friendly and conducive to both sides, the established and the new people. And hopefully that'll help grow our party too.
Thank you. Tony, any challenges in Wisconsin?
Yeah, it's actually wonderful Robin says that because I think that's something that a lot of states are now facing. There is a huge new influx of people coming into the party, and they carry with them their own level of energy and perspective. And I think there is a knee-jerk reaction sometimes from some of the people that have been around a while to be like, well, hey, we've already been doing this, and how dare you come in and say you could do it better? But it's really, as far as like the challenges that we face in Wisconsin, it's the fact that we do have a lot of very activated people that want to get involved. It's just giving them the obtainable and achievable goals so that they feel like they're part of something, and they devote that energy to something productive rather than infighting and anything else that is counterproductive to our movement. So that's probably the greatest challenge, at least for us. We are very rural too, like many of you guys are. So some of our affiliates are kind of really spread out. As chair, that was part of my plan of action, was to break our state down into different regions and then have coordinators for each region so that the affiliates were a lot more directly involved. And so to kind of decentralize a lot of the, activists and volunteers and get it more down to the local level. And then as far as, challenges that I've personally faced as chair, since I've only been here a week, it isn't, I haven't had any there, but in my involvement with the party, probably the greatest challenge that we faced was when Joe Jorgensen came to Madison. The city of Madison was extremely draconian during the COVID lockdowns. I was the city manager for that event. And so I was the one, reaching out, trying to contact parks and all these different events to get permits and access. And the city was absolutely refusing to do anything. We couldn't get literally a permit or permission to go anywhere. So we ended up actually just having the event on the Capitol grounds, and we had amplified sound. She set up a stage. There was rock music blaring. It was great. And, the Capitol Police came by a couple of times. They just saw that we were all just there. There was roughly 200 people that showed up. And, it all turned out fine, but just, facing that logistical nightmare of the state preventing any event of ours from even being, able to happen in that city, was kind of one of those things in my mind that still replays out. Like, that's, those are the things as chair that I want to combat a lot of is, just we weren't harming anybody. Nobody else was either. Like, it's ridiculous. So, but yeah, other than that, that's kind of where we stand.
Steve, any particular challenges?
Oh, plenty. Our 2020 state convention was March 13th and 14th last year, and I don't know if you guys quite remember what the COVID timeline was like, but literally that was the weekend after. Remember that NBA game where they just stopped before the game even started and everything started shutting down? Our convention was that weekend. So yeah, it started off with plenty of challenges. We mentioned the national convention. Obviously that was just such a cluster, but I'm glad that we were able to finally get it done. And I think a lot of folks don't understand the amount of work that the state chairs and the delegation chairs put in to make sure a hybrid was not just possible, but that it was going to work when we got to that point, to make sure that votes were going to be counted in a virtual way. So that was huge. And then finally, the biggest struggle in Illinois is always going to be ballot access. Illinois has some of the worst ballot access laws in the country. I think Reason Magazine article from a couple of years ago had us 49th out of 50. The only one that was worse was Georgia. Just a miserable piece of election law here in Illinois. We have to get to 5% in a statewide race to achieve ballot access, and then you got to do it again within 4 years or you lose it. And since I've been active in the LP, we haven't been able to do it on a statewide level. We've been able to get some pockets of enough libertarian support to be established in counties, but we haven't had statewide ballot access. So that's always going to be an issue. And, the other part of that is the signature requirements. We were lucky that we won a lawsuit last year, essentially giving us ballot access relief because of COVID, but we don't expect to get that in 2022 when we're running a governor and all that. And the minimum signature threshold is 25,000 signatures. And what's
5% look like in Illinois?
It's a lot. And we look, and to be completely honest, we got close in 2018. In 2018, there essentially was a Republican who broke off from the Republican Party. His name was Sam McCann, and had his own conservative party, new party, got enough signatures. All of this was funded, ironically, by unions from Chicago, which typically aren't Republican supporters or conservative supporters. And his entire purpose to be on the ballot was to prevent us from getting ballot access in 2018. We got close in 2016 with Gary Johnson and our comptroller candidate, Claire Ball. We didn't get quite as close this past year, but it was a weird election cycle where it was hard to campaign, during COVID. So, we have taken a more localized approach to ballot access, and now we have ballot access in 7 counties officially, and possibly some more. There's probably some legal battles ahead of us on that as far as how law gets interpreted, but we're ready to fight those battles. So that is my biggest struggle in Illinois as chair, and it will be the biggest struggle of the next chair and the chair after that and the chair after that, because the ballot access laws here are some of the worst.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Dalton, any particular challenges you got up there?
I believe most of the challenges we have here are the same challenges that every state affiliate deals with. Most of that comes down to ballot access and candidate recruitment. And I think the main crux of that is we don't have good infrastructure, especially here in North Dakota. We don't have a single local affiliate anywhere. So it's hard to identify local issues that matter to people in their towns or their counties. You can't be everywhere at once. I think the main challenge is the Libertarian Party, at least in North Dakota, has attempted a top-down approach. And we're supposed to be a grassroots movement, and that's just not how grassroots movements work. You got to build locally and build up. We have problems finding candidates, maintaining ballot access. We get it done, but we spend a lot of time and money and things that we could be doing to actually win elections instead of just maintaining ballot access. We should be doing more than that, and I think that's a main problem for a lot of different state affiliates is the infrastructure and the communication. And I think once we start growing there and once we start focusing there, I think we'll start moving forward in a way we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I hear you. We have kind of similar problems, or I guess my main problem here probably is just not enough activists, not enough candidates. Ballot access isn't a problem here, but we could definitely be doing a lot more. There were 17 legislative seats in South Dakota last year that went unopposed, where there wasn't even a challenger, because like Jared said, that he lives in a red state. Well, we definitely live in a red state up here, and like 90% of the legislature is Republican. I think there's only like 8 or 10 that are Democrat. I mean, they're almost non-existent. If we grew a little bit more, I think we could overtake the Democrats in South Dakota for sure. Infrastructure, like Dalton said, is definitely a challenge here. I hate to say it, but we all of our good people that we run across over the years, it's like they get poached. One of our old chair from our biggest county affiliate here a couple years ago ended up taking a job with Americans for Prosperity. Well, that's a nonpartisan organization, so now she couldn't be our chair anymore. Our old chair, who was the chair from 2017 to 2019, he ran as a libertarian in 2018. He only got about 5% of the vote. Unfortunately, he ended up switching parties, running as a Republican this year, and he ended up getting elected. And so I guess that's a challenge. I think probably a big challenge for everybody, not just us, is partisan voting. That guy was the same candidate from 2018 to 2020. The only thing that changed about him was the letter next to his name. But he was able to win just by changing that letter. And so, yeah, that's definitely a challenge. And I think that's something that for sure we gotta grow the party. And kind of like Robin was saying, the way to do that, the way to grow the party, the way to grow the vote totals is we definitely can't be running off our new members. One thing I just point out, as far as growth too, a lot of you guys have mentioned that your states have been growing great. We had a really big bump off of Joe Jorgensen. We grew by, in the last 8 months, we've grown by 28%. And again, we're a small party, so, it's pretty kind of easier to put up 28% numbers than if you were a big party. But, yeah, go ahead.
Well, do you think you're having Freedom Fest there this summer? Do you think that's actually going to help?
It should. We have a booth, and so we are going to try and hit up everyone there and try to get them to change their registration, join the party, donate, buy something, whatever. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. That should be great. What have you found? Just some ideas to kick around real quick. What do you found the best ways to fundraise in your state? What's worked for you? We'll start again. We'll go Jared.
Honestly, fundraising at the state level it wasn't really a priority until like the last couple of years. So one of the things we put together is a booster pack. So it's a recurring donation in different levels, get different premiums. That was a plan that our executive director put together, and we got out there every now and then on Facebook, send out emails, pump it out, get people to go. Every bit helps. controlling costs has been a lot easier than getting additional donations sometimes. And so we are very frugal with our spending, but it all goes out into outreach. The support of National on the tech side, we've been able to just really take out a lot of our permanent expenses. So all the fundraising is basically gravy. So we can go buy bumper stickers, lit, get out, do parades, hand it out. And it's always amazing. It's an event like that where people want literature about the Libertarian Party. It's like people are curious. They want to know what's going on. Once again, a lot of people just haven't heard about it because it's not your everyday life.
Yeah, I hear that. We once did a Pride festival, and when I went to go get the booth from at the day of the event, they said, "Oh, the Liberation Party." So we've been called everything. I hear that. All right, Mike, what have you guys done?
A lot of it goes to a lot of it goes to communication. We, getting emails out to our subscriber lists, doing stuff like this type of thing. We have our own podcast on Thursday nights, so Libertarian Speakeasy, and we have found that we bring in a lot of people there because we're always pushing that LPI.org/donate, join. We had all kinds of new members come in last year, and it makes a huge difference when we can push that membership and then try to keep communicating with those members, with volunteers, getting them involved. The ballot access aspect really played a big part. The lawsuits played a big part. We have a lot of people that are willing to help us do that. Granted, we're putting that right back into that lawsuit. We put it right back into ballot access, but we still were able to come up with a significant increase in our revenue. And a lot of that is about communication, saying that we need your help. We can't do it without you. We want to grow the party. We want to spread liberty throughout all of Iowa. And so communicate. We also recently opened up an online store where people can buy apparel. So doing stuff that's going to kind of going outside our norm. Thankfully, that's the only thing I can say thankfully for COVID is that they pushed us outside of our norm. They made us go out there and get a podcast so we can communicate. They made us go out there and try to play with stuff online like an LPIA store because we can't go out to events and sell merch or anything like that during that time. So communication and adapting is a big part of it.
Sounds good. Robin.
Well, so I'd say that most of our income comes from memberships and candidate filing fees, and it's an odd year, so we don't have anybody running for statewide office right now. There's also a level of membership that if you pay $100 a year, you get automatically voting membership. So our state, not every member gets to vote in the state convention for bylaws and for officers and such. You have to be on the state committee, and you get appointed to your committee from your counties and your Senate districts. Choose, 2 people for each Senate district to be on the state committee. And so you can bypass that by paying this higher level fee, and then you can be a voting member. But other than that, like with the convention, I wanted to do it as cheaply as possible. And I probably could have used it as a fundraising event, but I wasn't expecting the turnout. Normally in odd years, we have very, very low turnout, and I was expecting 35, but we had 60. And I think next year we are going to attempt to do a convention together with Kansas in Kansas City and see if we can share hotel costs. And then, we'll have our separate business meetings, but we'll have like a fancy, not quite a gala, maybe just a cocktail hour with some high profile libertarians to draw in to make it a fundraising event for like a nice dinner. But we haven't done that before, at least not as long as I've been around. So it's, they have confidence in me, so I'm going to try it.
That sounds good, though. Joint convention. Tony, what have you guys been? Well, I know you're new, but any tips, tricks? What have you guys been doing up there?
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, the last couple of years for the LPWI have been from my understanding, some of the most productive for fundraising. And I think from what I've seen, a lot of that comes down to a lot of the integration to the digital platforms for donations and stuff like that. When you can have a reoccurring donation on PayPal that just gets automatically taken out of your account, there's a lot of that. There's a lot less pressure to continuously re-up it. And then, you get a lot more retention from membership. And I think as far as, what we have moving forward, we're trying to really focus on making events happen all around the state in different areas that are not business oriented. Actually, Adam Kokesh at our convention said it the best. Libertarians tend to have way too much business, not enough party. So that's kind of one of the things that I want to do is establish different areas of the state where we can throw little parties, and it's just fun. There's not going to be anything, official happening. It's just, hey, Libertarians are putting on the Yellow Brick Road event up in Door County this year, which we're getting together right now, where we're going to just have people come, and it's going to be to fundraise and build membership and just, have a great time. And really, I think as far as membership, our fundraising goes, a lot of what we need to focus on is just meeting people where they are, getting to the subcultures where people already reside, where they already spend their money, and then just giving them our little taste in those areas too. And then they'll just happily give it to us. I mean, like even gaming culture and cannabis culture and all these different areas are areas that we can tap into, that already people are throwing millions of dollars into a year, and we just need to be there. So.
Sounds great. Steve, what's Illinois doing?
Well, we actually just finished our last fiscal year 20, with a 5-year fundraising high, which was surprising given the pandemic. But one of the more successful things that we've done over the last couple of years, this was a program that was launched, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. And it had its most successful year last year, is our lifetime membership program. So in Illinois, membership is free, and you can vote at convention as long as you're a resident and you're a free member. But there are other membership options. And one of those options is a lifetime member. The benefit of being a lifetime member, you get a little lapel pin and that type of stuff and some swag, but you also get free convention registration. Like basic convention registration, you can upgrade, but you get free basic convention registration for life as a lifetime member. So that's a pretty pricey option, but we've seen a lot of our wealthier members take advantage of it. It's $1,200 a year. Most people who have signed up to be lifetime members do $100 a month over the course of a year. And there are a handful of our lifetime members who just did not stop that contribution after their lifetime membership was already paid in full. So they're still contributing $100 a month at that point. I think the year we launched it, I think we had 3 and maybe 4 the next year. And then this past year we had 8. And some of that was just me in December picking up the phone and calling anybody who was at least halfway and saying, hey, another $500, another $400, you can, get this lifetime membership. You'll never have to pay for a convention again. So that's been a really successful program for us. Now we have to factor into the cost of the convention at some point when we get so many lifetime members that it affects the bottom line of the convention. But for the most part, those people are usually upgrading to platinum convention tickets where they get to sit with the speaker and that type of thing too. So we also went a little bit. I don't know if I want to say overboard, but we had more fundraising opportunities at our convention, but they weren't like mandatory events. So if you wanted to just show up, vote on business, and hear panel speakers, great, awesome. But we had a VIP suite. We had an amazing auction, and so we had some different things we did at the convention this year that helped us bring in a lot of money. We spent a little more, but we brought in $17,000 from our convention last year. So, we ended up in the green on that, and that was good. But yeah, I would say just we found some unique ways to give some higher dollar donors some value for those donations. and we focused on that a little bit. Meanwhile, we just hired a couple months ago. We just hired an executive director who is just a paid fundraiser. He doesn't have any administrative duties, but he's been busy contacting basically any new members that are showing up and people who have donated in the past. And, you know, he's kind of getting that ball rolling now, and that's helping us out too. So.
Oh, a lot of good things there. It's a pretty big deal on the convention. Dalton, what do you guys got? Anything special you guys are doing?
Not particularly. I mean, most of our, our income comes from our basic memberships. And then we have a few higher benefactors that have been around the party for decades. But there's been a lot of options we've recently started to explore over the past year or two. You know, with COVID-19, there's been a lot of harder options to explore. Trying to attend events and sell merch, or different kinds of tickets to different types of events, or even hold events. We were looking at doing a gala this year. Unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of interest in it from across the country. That's unfortunate, but we have a hard time justifying asking a certain amount of money for our members to meet with just the state party or the executive committee. That doesn't seem fair. But there are other options we've looked at, like merch and things of that nature. But it's still kind of a work in process right now, and we're hoping to do better at it in the future.
Yeah, we're pretty. Like I said, we're a smaller affiliate here. I guess I can brag though. Last year probably was our number one. Again, we're dealing with smaller numbers here, but last year was probably our number one fundraising year. Kind of based on the backs of the Joe Jorgensen and the Spike Cohen events, because we went and placed a kind of big order. Can't remember. I think we spent like $500 on T-shirts that we ended up selling at those events. So we kind of doubled our money on that. And then another thing, kind of cool thing that me and a couple friends, we went down to the national convention, and I had printed up these libertarian national convention, like on a nice construction paper. And we went around and we got all the signatures from a bunch of higher profile libertarians at the convention. And then when we do an annual barbecue at the end of the summer up here. And so we auctioned those off at the barbecue, and we raised a couple $100 that way. And but we got some work to do on fundraising too. I guess I could segue this into another question I was going to ask everyone is, are you guys all involved in that Civis CRM program? And has that helped you fundraise, like with having the memberships and the different structures on membership? We're currently in the process of getting onboarded into that program. So if everyone could just go around, and if they've got any experience with that, or any pluses or maybe negatives you have with that program. Jared, we'll start with you.
Yeah, definitely. Civi has been a huge help. Like when Mike was talking about communication, it's really enabled us to just it's something we're still learning how to do, but send out emails to members, anybody registered, anybody that I have contact for, and also using that for press releases. We can send out emails that way. Keep track of these people. There's a lot of fluctuation, especially in the media. So just we have a radio station's email as opposed to an individual, but then we can also track individual reporters or media people as well. So enabling that communication has been really helpful. So one of the things we started this year, and we've got somebody who's fairly new with the LP in Nebraska, Jeremy Westengard. He's a new county chair. He's also been helping to drive a newsletter that we can just email out to anybody we've got submitted their email address to it. So collecting those emails, that's a different trick. But if people want to know, they can easily here's a link. Here's what was going on. I think that's really important, and we can use that to emphasize and if you want to help out, toss us a couple bucks each month, and So yeah, the Civi has been really helpful in my mind.
All right. Mike.
I'm going to echo a lot of what he just said. It is about communication. For us, we use MailChimp for our emails and stuff like that, just because we do a large number of emails that go out. But it did help a lot, especially when we were trying to petition for signatures, reaching out to that volunteer list. And quite frankly, the biggest help that it's been for me is the reports, being able to go in there and pull reports for donations, pull reports for new members, pull reports for people in memberships that are expiring, getting those communications out through the system. I think there's a lot that can still be done with that, and I know that Ken Molman and all of them are doing a fantastic job helping out and getting that going. But it really is about reporting and being able to utilize that and leveraging that system to be able to help us grow and help us communicate with everybody internally, with counties, as well as volunteers and just people who want to sign up and be members.
May 4th is the next IT director training session. So if you've got an IT director or somebody who's going to be running emails, Civi, getting all those reports, they should be on that training. So
yeah, I've been going to those meetings. I'm the designated IT guy, I guess, but I don't know.
It happens.
I don't know crap about IT, and I know that once we get the program up and running, that it's going to help us, but it sure can be intimidating, just getting it going.
There's a lot there, and there's again, changing over in a new batch of chairs coming in, and perhaps IT directors, whoever that is. So it's a challenge, but
I think that's one of the things I'm kind of excited about being on it is making the transitions a little bit more seamless. I don't plan to be around forever, and it seems like in the past, maybe a lot of information's been lost over the years. You have new people coming in, taking over the party. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it should help in the future. All right, Robin, is Missouri using CRM?
It is. As vice chair, I don't have a whole lot to do there. I am going to be using it to contact our entire membership to try to get them coordinated in their county so that they know who else is around them. But I know that our treasurer, Sean, is also our IT guy, so I'll remind him about the 4th. But he actually used to be on the LNC IT committee, so I know that he knows how to make everything work. So we have him doing all that stuff for us. What you said about making things a little bit more seamless. One of the things that I'm going to try to accomplish before this fall is make a handbook for each of the positions in our party and some of the things they do, so that if somebody has to resign or whatever, we have a little bit more details on how to make a new person come into this a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one thing. I went to that officers training in 2018, and I think it was Kara Schultz said that if you have clear directions for people, then it's you'll get a lot better results versus and then when they come in, they know what's expected of them, they know what to do, no surprises. Tony, is Wisconsin on the CRM?
Yeah, yep. The state uses it. I just had a training session with the previous chair this week to kind of sit down and look it over. And, I can definitely understand where you say it's a bit intimidating, but it does look like it's overall a pretty useful platform, for us to coordinate a lot of our efforts. And like Mike was saying, pull reports and figure out really where your state's at as far as a lot of the data and statistics go. And then also be able to have a place where you can keep track of all your membership and everything too. So I think, as more people start to use it, and then we can give more feedback and they can continue to fine tune it and everything else, it can be a pretty great platform to use.
All right, Steve.
Well, our public facing Civi CRM site goes live literally tomorrow. So we're at the end of the onboarding process. So I don't have a whole lot of experience using it so far, but I'm excited for the end of the process to be here. So,
Well, you were onboarded successfully. That's a win.
there you go.
All right, Dalton. Are you guys using it or in the process of getting it?
Yep, we're actually ever since I've become the chair, we've sort of been trying to phase into it, and it kind of circles back to what you're saying, like with elections and resignations and stuff, and that seamless entry. I actually became interim chair before I was ever chair, and our chair, whenever he left, he was pretty disillusioned, and he kind of left us all hanging. So we didn't have passwords, or I didn't even know how to get into it or how it worked, and then working with the IT department is difficult to figure out as well. And then, like you said, once I sat down and tried to learn how to use it, it was just so intimidating. I'm not an IT guy. That's not something I should be doing. And we just finally, here in the last couple of months, have gotten an excellent IT director by the name of Taylor. And we should have all our stuff up and running, our access to our email accounts, be able to pull reports for our memberships, look at donors. It's an awesome tool. And having somebody that can utilize that is very valuable. And I'm excited that we do have one now. So.
Heck yeah. What are some best techniques to gain more LP reg? Well, I mean, I guess some of you guys said that you can't actually get registrations in your state. So let me rephrase that. What are some good techniques to grow the party in your state? I know a lot of you have said local affiliates is definitely top one, I would think. Jared, you got any techniques to get more members?
The local affiliates is really great because it's people who know the needs of their community, and they might be working in a volunteer position with somebody else anyway. And so if those people need help, we can latch onto those and pull people in. Any campaign for any office is also a membership drive. Try to get people involved, reach out to people who may not, already be a libertarian, but getting the name out there of the party. Otherwise, until last year, we just had real good success. Get a libertarian shirt on and go out in the public. Go to places that you normally go or maybe don't normally go. Sit around, and we usually have some interesting graphics. We've come up with some shirts over the years. Go out and like, what does that even mean? And they're like, well, since you asked, it's your fault now. But yeah, engaging with people, it's work, but being able to engage with people as individuals and say like, well, what do you like? Because we've got the best way to get to almost anything you like, unless it's status regulations and mask mandates. But if you want to allow people to make their own choices, the whole liberty thing, we have a good message. So getting people who willingly want to engage in that, yeah, just being out in the public and not being ashamed or apologetic, but have good answers on how we actually support them better than what they think they do themselves. So
I like it. Mike, what are you doing in Iowa?
A lot of it does go back out to outreach. And we've learned a lot from the Georgetown campaign about ways that we can get out there and do some outreach, getting involved with that. I think getting outside of your echo chamber is a big part of that. If you're going to be able to get more people recruited to the Libertarian Party, you need to be able to step outside your comfort level and don't just sit here and want to get online and argue with each other. Go out in the communities and actually try to do some outreach. Like, for example, we're doing a community service day on the 15th or weekend on the 15th and 16th this month, where we're going out, we're encouraging counties and in communities to go out there, do food drives, do clothing drives, park cleanup, whatever you need to do, even if it's just a few people out there wearing LPIA or libertarian gear, engage in conversation with some of those people and go someplace where you're not used to going. I think it was my first time ever being at a protest or a rally. I was able to engage with so many people that that probably had never even heard, and they admittedly never even heard of the libertarian name. So getting outside your echo chamber, engage with the communities that you are not maybe familiar with. Find those people, find those communities, and bring them in, because they will come. They will buy into that message. Just like Jared said, engage and actually speak to them. Don't talk to them. Speak with them and listen. More importantly, listen to what they have to say, and try to engage in a manner that is going to create conversation and not anger, I guess. Get it there, Greg.
Robin.
Okay. I'm going to agree with you. Talk to people. We have great ideas, but it's hard to convince other people of our great ideas if we don't listen to their problems. So I'm part of a new group that is growing in membership, but one of their issues is they don't want to engage in identity politics. And I think that that is a bad idea, because the people who push as hard as they can for more government intervention, they do so because they're afraid of not having the government there to take care of them. So we need to show them, listen to their problems, make them feel like they are heard, and then they're more willing to listen to how our solutions are more moral, and how the government only makes things worse. But as far as reaching out to more people, all of us are in, well, okay, maybe not you, Steve, but most of us are in pretty red states. So I say go to gun shows. Go to these groups where people are preppers, because they're already people who are not big fans of the government, but you know, they're prepping their medical supplies and prepping on ammo and stuff like that. So I mean, it's an easy in to get in there and start a conversation. What I want to do here is just find little niche problems. Like Missouri recently raised the tobacco age to 21. And we already know alcohol has been 21 for a long time, and that's really stupid. It's like, are you an adult or are you not? So as a way to draw more younger people into the party, I want to bring up the fact that you can vote at 18, you can go into the military at 18, but now you have to be 21 to either drink or smoke. So are you an adult or are you not? So just bringing up those topics. Maybe you're in some state like Utah, and polygamy is a big idea. You know, we've already got the marriage out of government when it comes to gay marriage. So why not, if multiple people want to sign a contract, what right does the government have to get involved there? So just find small topics that not everybody's going to be interested in, but you know, whatever works in your area more than other areas, figure it out and get at it.
All right, Tony.
Yeah, definitely. At risk of sounding repetitive, I think what a lot of people are narrowing it down to is accessibility and presence. You know, we need to be more accessible to the general public. They need to know that we're out there supporting everybody, because that is what our political movement's about, is the fact that we don't really care what you do in your life. We want to let you live your life, and we'll just leave you alone to do it as long as you aren't harming anybody else. And I think a lot of the subcultures, like I said earlier, that exists in our overall society, they already kind of believe in that principle, because that's why they're a subculture, right? They kind of have already separated themselves from the main group of people, and they already are living their own life. And I think if we go and speak to them in those areas and we make ourselves accessible and present to them, we'll be drawing a lot more people into our movement that way. You know, we'll be helping them understand. I think like sex work, cannabis, and like marriage are three areas that lately a lot of people have been coming over to libertarianism in general for. Because we are the only political movement that cares to do anything about any of those topics. All the other dinosaur parties have already established they don't care at all. That, you know, they'll do their own little watered down version of it, but they don't actually care to give people the true liberty to make the choices with their own lives. So I think that's the number one thing we can focus on, is finding people where they are, letting them know that we appreciate and respect them for where they are, and then, you know, that mutual respect and relationship can form.
Sounds good. Steve?
Well, I second everything that's been said so far, so I won't repeat it. I'll add a couple of other things that I think are really important. First, run local candidates in partisan positions, even if they're just paper candidates. Even if they're not going to campaign at all, a ballot can be a marketing strategy. Just seeing the word libertarian or the letter L next to a candidate's name helps legitimize our party in the minds of voters. So if your county boards or township races or whatever structure you have in your state, that's a partisan race at a local level, even municipal or whatever, just try to find some folks to volunteer to put their name on the ballot. And if you can convince them to run a full campaign, that's awesome. But just getting them on the ballot so people get used to seeing the word libertarian and used to seeing libertarian candidates on their ballots, that's a powerful marketing strategy in and of itself. Secondly, find someone to help your state party with public relations and media outreach. I hear from a lot of other libertarians who have a very defeatist attitude toward media, to say, well, why even try and put out a press release? Why even try and make ourselves available for interviews? Why even try and send out, graphics and quotes and headshots and all that stuff to papers and TV stations and radio stations when they're not going to pick up our stories? When a lot of times the reason they're not being picked up is because a lot of our state parties or county affiliates lack the institutional knowledge on how to actually contact journalists and media organizations. Most journalists are trying to fill a news hole, whether that's time in broadcast or on a sheet of paper in print. They need content. And a lot of times they're not going to shy away from us if we are smart about how we reach out to media and we deliver a message that's palatable and worthwhile for a general audience. I work in media in my day job and my side hustle, and that's one of the things that since I got involved with the party in Illinois, even before I was chair, that I kind of focused pretty heavily on, and it was successful. I was communications director in Illinois before I was chair, and in the year and a half I was communications director, we had over 75 either print articles, newspaper, radio, television, news stories across the state in that year and a half. So, if you can find someone who has that knowledge and skill base, even if they're not the ones writing the press release, even if they're just advising you on when to send something out or how to send it out or who to send it to, that's extremely valuable. And I would encourage everybody to try and find some of those folks or take advantage of some of the there's media training from LP National from time to time. Most of that stuff's, over Zoom or whatever platform they've got. So take advantage of those things as well.
I'll also add to that as well. Op-eds, getting the libertarian message out and explaining what we are about. Take advantage of any issues that we see coming up and get an op-ed out there. I try to get one out at least once a month, and we're finally breaking some ground here in Iowa in our biggest newspaper, the Des Moines Register. It's been we rarely ever get one in. We've had two in the last 3 months get into that newspaper. So you got to get it out there. You may get rejected. You probably won't hear anything at all, but get some op-eds out there. And it's not just for the party people as well. It's about getting the rest of the libertarians willing to speak with their local groups, getting into their local press, and trying to get involved in spreading a message of liberty so that way people will be engaged. Like, what's this all about? What is this libertarian thing? They will look into it.
For sure. Dalton.
Well, at the risk of sounding too redundant here, I mean, everything that everybody said here, it's awesome. It's good content. It's exactly what everybody should be doing. One of the things I did here in North Dakota is I tried to quit being partisan for a little while. And I did something I started doing called just Liberty Alliances, and I found other groups and other movements that were already pushing for libertarian ideals, whether it be about cannabis or the Second Amendment, or whether they could sell baked goods to their neighbor or whatever. And I would just go out and I would support them on what they were already doing. And then I would reach out to like YAL or Americans for Prosperity. And then in my first year as chair, we did a Shall Not Infringe rally at the Capitol building, and we had like 200 people there. And they didn't care what the message was. They just wanted to know that their rights were being respected. And then once they meet a libertarian there and they find out that you helped or you helped set it up or you did set it up, then they become interested and then they want to know more. And then you'll see them people come back around. And even if they don't join the Libertarian Party, they're still going to start doing stuff in their own parties. And it will be more liberty oriented. And that's okay with me.
Yeah, a lot of good ideas there. I like the op-ed ideas. There's some papers here in South Dakota that publish some. It's definitely something I could try to do. I like Steve's comments on, running candidates. Like I said earlier, we had 17 seats go unopposed. I mean, realistically, we're probably not going to be able to find, because a lot of the reasons that those districts go unopposed, they're real rural to begin with. So finding candidates is definitely an issue, but I definitely think that's good to get your name out. The more candidates on the ballot, the more people see it, the more people know or start to see us, start to see who we are. Like Robin said earlier, we're really looking forward to Freedom Fest this summer because that's going to be a great opportunity for us to try to grow the party here. Here we'll move on real quick to I got two questions. I didn't ask a whole lot of national party questions. I figure there's usually enough national party bickering on social media. We don't really need to spend too much time.
Uh-oh.
Someone was listening and took him down.
I nominate Mike.
I guess we lost Greg. I guess one thing that here he is. I'll bring him back up.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I hit a wrong button there.
You're an NSA agent.
I got questions over here and I hit the wrong button.
Now I get to go first. Is this how it's going to work out? Thanks a lot, Greg.
Yeah. Change the order up. Dan Fishman, the former executive director of the National Party, he had wrote an article recently where among other things, he had some other points he talked about. But one of the things he had talked about was switching the national chair to a 4-year term versus a 2-year term, because the reasoning behind that was, various things. But right now, we had a presidential election as well as other elections going on when our new national chair was elected, and they're, basically thrown in right in the middle of that. What are your thoughts on that? 4-year terms, 2-year terms? Anything that might help us doing elections off years, something like that? We'll start with Mike.
I read the article, and it's very well written. I can probably get behind the 4-year. I'm usually on the side of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think it's, obviously it makes it difficult at times to get those elections in, to be able to get that presidential cycle. You have somebody that can actually focus and build it up. Would be nice at a 4-year term, but it's not just the chair for that. You're looking at the entire committee. And subcommittees that are involved with it as well. Are we going to go 4 years on that? I think those are almost more important and probably vitally important compared to the chair. The chair is a public figure. The chair is a person that wants to try to structure and lead the party. But it's those people that are in those roles, and the regional reps, if we want to do officers, we can do officers. People on the convention committees and the ballot access committee, which is huge for us. We need to be able to have some structure there. I don't know if trying to trade people out, in and out, if under the same chair would work personally. So I think I'd have to look a little bit deeper into the plan, but I can possibly get behind it if that structure is still there and we can guarantee it's going to be successful.
Steve, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I'm with it. Alternate your presidential conventions and your chair conventions. I think that makes the most sense to me, especially when, for example, down in New Orleans a few years ago, there was business that never got taken care of, because we're trying to do so many things at once. So if we can help spread that out a little bit, yeah, I'm all for it. So,
Dalton, any opinion? You're on mute.
Whoops. I'm more of a fan of the chair being elected in off years, because we're correct. There was a lot of drama going on this year, and I don't know if any of you guys were delegates and you sat in on the national convention, but it was a nightmare. And we pulled it off seamlessly. That's the first time that's ever happened in history. But it would have been really nice if there'd have been a lot of that drama going on this year as compared to last year while we were running a very contested presidential race. And I think that affected the Jorgensen campaign. I don't know if any of you guys worked with that, but I think that caused a lot of schisms and caused us a lot of problems. And we could have done a lot better if we'd have had those elections held at a later date.
Robin, you were in Orlando this year with your famous purse.
Yep, I'm actually the convention planning committee just wanted to make sure that I was coming back with my purse full of booze, and yes, I will be. I'm gonna have to agree. It was the first convention I'd ever been to, the online portion and then the Orlando portion, and it was not a good first impression. So. Like us in our state party, we do officer elections on odd years so that on even years when there are candidates running and stuff like that, we can focus more on them and less on us. So I'm trying to see if there's any way that could have been any sort of motivation with some agenda in mind. And I really can't find any. It seems like an idea that's way past its time. It makes sense, and we should have been doing this for some time. So, at least in my opinion.
Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't been to a national convention yet, but I do plan to be going next time around. I would echo a lot of what everybody else has been saying about the odd versus even years. And I would also go a step further. Karen Ann Harlos has a really great idea, and I'm sure other people have thought of this also, of actually adding another position as a spokesperson so that the chair of the LNC and the spokesperson are different entities and different roles. And then if that was the situation, I could see the actual chair itself getting like a 4-year term so that the structural integrity continues during that 4 years. Then maybe the spokesperson changes up every 2 years or something like that, just to keep that continuation. But either way, I do like the idea of having some form of spokesperson because like even, sometimes you get somebody who's very business oriented and they don't really want to be in the public eye versus somebody who's very public oriented. And they don't really like the business side of things. So, but otherwise, yeah, I think overall, at least doing it in the odd years outside of campaign cycles, I think would be better,
Jared, what are your thoughts?
I've got a lot of thoughts. Some of them are conflicting. The one thing that we have is a party that is growing so rapidly that 2 years is a long time. Most of the people doing anything in our party aren't getting paid. So it's not their main shtick. It's not something they can do. I think that a lot of the issues with the presidential campaigns and the LNC campaigns, it seemed like there's a lot of personalities that were just self-aggrandizing and wanted to run for LNC chair to get their name out there. And I don't know that they even necessarily played into some of the conflicts and some of the roadblocks we got into with the Jorgensen campaign. I would say leave it 2 years for now, and perhaps an alternate structure like Tony mentioned, where if a good chair does their job, that we don't even necessarily know they're doing things, they're just getting done, and meetings get ran, as opposed to a personality on the internet saying things that just, are cringy, ineffective, or counterproductive. So yeah, maybe an alternate structure altogether, as opposed to giving somebody more time to do a job. You get ran off. I mean, America lost its collective minds every 4 years anyway with our national elections. We shouldn't be representative of that as a party either. The LNC chair, whether it's 2 years, 4 years, it shouldn't be where anybody freaks out.
Well, then if that's the case, then maybe should we have national every year, so that odd number years we can do officer elections, and then even number years we can do the bylaws and the nomination of candidates, either U.S. or whatever.
That's kind of how South Dakota has it structured right now. We serve 2-year terms, and the officers are elected in odd number of years. So 2021, 2023. That way, because like with our situation, we can nominate candidates at our convention. This eliminates trying to do officer elections, candidate elections, all at the same time. Plus, it kind of eliminates the whole threat of a party takeover, which right now, if we're such a small affiliate, maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's like if 40 people just came in to our convention, they could kind of have their way, So maybe one idea for the national thing, instead of like a 4-year election, I mean, I'd probably be even okay with just moving up the election to even like January or something like that. Okay, let's get our presidential candidate out there right away. Let's get them an extra 6 months to campaign. Let's, you know what I mean? Give them an extra 6 months to fundraise. I mean, if the only reason we're waiting to June or July to do it is so that we can get some ex-Republican or some dropout from the general primary, to me, we could just move up the election by 6 months. That's kind of my solution.
Greg, I just want to chime in on that. There may be legal issues at play with that, because some states probably have libertarian primaries for president. So we might not be able to nominate someone before those primaries happen. I don't know that for sure, but I'm going out on a limb and saying that might be the case.
Yeah, you're probably right. There were a few states that we have our primaries so late in South Dakota. I think ours is like June 6th, and by then the election's been decided, so they're kind of pointless for us here. But yeah, you're probably correct in that there's rules. They always got rules. Should the National Convention adopt some sort of electronic voting to speed up the process? We'll go ahead and start with Mike.
If we can get the infrastructure in place, we know it's going to work. It's something that has been tested, and we know that it is foolproof. Sure. I think that would make sense. However, at the same time, though, I think we need to be able to have training in the meantime for the delegation chairs on how to go about doing that, how to get everything sent in. I think we did a pretty good job this last time around here in Iowa. We had a lot of great communication. It's difficult because we had one half of the group here in Iowa and the other half there in Orlando. But I think that doing a little more training on that, going through the specific details and getting it out far ahead of time before the convention would be very helpful. But as far as doing electronic, I think there's a means for that. I just see that causing drama, though. I really do.
What about you, Steve?
Well, I'm concerned about ROI on that. How much is it going to cost, and how much time does it actually save? I mean, we need to look at those two points. I don't want to, tell a tech company like, "Hey, come in and do this for us," and then we get a bill at the end that's going to increase national convention registration to a point where we're further putting a burden on delegates who want to go, because technology costs money. If we can somehow get folks who are willing to do this pro bono or develop some kind of software that we'd be able to use that, again, as Mike said, doesn't have, we're not going to see any issues with it, and it's going to work when we need it to work, then yeah, let's do it. But I don't want to run something that's super expensive that's going to run up convention costs, or have something that's unreliable. So we just got to make sure all our ducks are in a row on it, if that's the direction we're going. But I think it would speed things up.
Real quick, I'm gonna say maybe the solution isn't necessarily to do electronic voting. It's just to eliminate the nomination speech part of it, because man, we had hours of nomination speeches, But anyway, Dalton, what do you think? Electronic voting, yay, nay?
I mean, I can definitely see the benefits, and I can see the caveats there. I think this is something the ONC needs to form an exploratory committee over, because as we move further into the future, these things are going to be less expensive and more viable. And if we can get the party nationally to vote on something without having to travel 1,000 miles away, because that is expensive, it takes money, it takes time. I think that's something we should definitely look into, and I think it'd be unwise not to. The further technology goes, just the easier something like that's going to be able to happen. And I understand there's going to be drama. I mean, I remember Starchild when we were doing the virtual convention, and he was upset. And I understand those kind of things are going to happen, but we're the party of innovation and moving forward. And so this conversation is something we definitely need to keep having.
Well, and I want to just clarify, when I talk about electronic voting, I'm talking about in-person electronic voting, because doing the online, if we can do it, if we have to do it, have the structure in place online. But in person, I'm all for it electronically. But, I think we still need to have in person as long as it's feasible.
I agree.
So we used a Poll Everywhere app for the first portion, for the presidential nomination portion. And even though a lot of us met in person, we still use that on our phones so that our chair could track everybody in the state all at once. And the biggest thing about that was, since most of it was on Zoom, people would go to the bathroom or go and get a snack or be walking their dogs and not paying attention to what was going on. And so I was texting people, doing my best to cat herding, to be like, okay, hey, we're voting now. You've got like 3 minutes to get this in, or you're just not going to count. So you're a delegate. Come on, let's pay attention. And I know that Mike just said it should be in person, and it really should, because that not only it's a good fundraiser for the party, but also it just gets people to know each other and talk to each other and interacting. And so it's so much easier to form committees and things like that when you're acquainted with one another. But also it is expensive. Gosh, the people from Hawaii and Alaska have to travel to the main part of the U.S., and it's never going to be convenient for them. They're never going to have a convention there because nobody else is going to travel all the way out to Hawaii or Alaska. There's just it's cost prohibitive. So I hate to say that I would like to make a hybrid thing work out more better than it did last year, but it seems like it should. We like you said, we're the party of innovation. We should be moving forward with stuff like this.
Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think that we have to, just because I think if we get our support behind like a internet-based voting system, I don't think that entirely eliminates the need or the desire for a physical convention. I think that a physical convention, as you had already outlined, is extremely important because it brings people together. Our LPWI convention was extremely crucial because so many different people for the first time got to meet each other and form, networking and everything. But I do think that if you don't provide the ability for libertarians to vote online, you're also running the risk of alienating and removing a huge chunk of people who otherwise would be involved, but they can't get there. So I do, honestly, I stand a lot behind emerging in technologies like blockchain. Blockchain is an area that I think the Libertarian Party can really look into a lot more for these kind of areas. Blockchain can provide a voting system that's completely digital, completely accountable, absolutely no room really for hacking or, security risks or anything like that. And I think actually a lot of the national voting system in this country could probably benefit from, these kinds of technologies, because they're very independent, third party oriented, and, there would actually be some form of accountability to them. So I just think the more that we keep having this conversation and opening up the discussion of different ways, and I think that the technologies are really starting to advance in a way that we'll start to see solutions soon. But I do think we need to keep the idea open of having an online voting platform or access, as long as it's, has integrity and there's security there, so that we don't alienate people.
Sounds good, Jared.
Yeah, I was gonna say blockchain's the answer to everything, right? So, I mean, there's two different parts. It's valuable to have the in-person convention. Voting, you can vote electronically in person at the convention. I think that the electronic voting is really, it can be much faster. You can stamp it with a hash to signify that's you. My understanding was, I believe it was a Porcupine app that they developed for the online convention. That was so close to being successful, and that was a very, very short development time. We've messed around for about a year, but we have 3 more years till the presidential convention. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to get something solid and secure done. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for people unable to attend, like we have a hybrid convention ever again, but it'd be faster and better for people at the physical convention anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Mostly when I brought that up, electronic voting, I was talking about an in-person convention, but allowing for an online vote versus 2018. We all delegation chairs, they physically write out a paper form, and they stand in a big old line, and they turn it in one by one. We had Karen Ann Harlos on here a couple weeks ago, or a month ago, and she said there actually is, in the bylaws, like there's a problem with this in the sense that it calls for a written vote in the national bylaws. So, I think all these are good ideas. Now, whether those bylaws will ever change and we can do that is another story.
And another thing to think about on that as well is, will it have an impact on our presidential scale, with certain states saying, well, you guys did all electronic? Well, we can't accept that, like you said, with the written part. So I think that's something to look into as well.
Yeah, the one thing, bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order, I know people really love both those things, but they're supposed to be tools to get a job done. It's that we don't worship at that altar. And bylaws were written by schmucks like us, chairs, bylaws committees, and we always know, like, oh yeah, we need to change these bylaws. It's not handed down from God or anything. So yeah, if we need to change bylaws, the biggest concern is complying with state and federal election laws, not Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is to change the bylaws on the LP national side. I know they don't change very often.
Well, it's a lot easier to just delete one than it is to change or add one.
So Devin Saxon, the guy, he's usually my co-host. He's the guy producing behind the scenes tonight. He is our communications director for our state party here. And so he had a question earlier, and he wanted to know, how close to the edge do you go for messaging as a state party? Do you guys control the messaging? Do you got a guy that's kind of got some leeway? How do you guys handle it, Mike?
It's always going to be something where if something controversial, we need to discuss it from a state central committee standpoint. But when it comes to messaging, I think we just try to keep it with something that's going to be engaging to people, and it's we create conversation. We don't necessarily have something that will say you can't do this, you can't do that. But if it is something like, for example, sending out a party statement on something, you need to go through the rest of the committee at least and be able to make sure everybody on the committee is comfortable, because in the end, they are all representing the stated party as well. And they're the ones that are going to have to answer to that from their districts or from their personal email or anything along those lines. So I think you have to have a balance there. I try to, from our end, we try to balance fun and engagement and outreach, and doing stuff like our like the show that we have. It's a good fun time, but it's also informational, and we get quite a few views on that. So doing stuff like that to try to get the messaging out and really getting a vibe for the people that are going to be listening. I think Robin, Jared, you guys have all talked about mostly red state. That's Iowa. We're mostly a red state, but we still have to balance that blue aspect because the large majority of our voters is in that blue area. So we have to find a balance with that, and we try to balance that out.
All right, Steve, any special messaging?
Well, we're lucky in Illinois. We've got an excellent social media director and strategist. Shout out to Chase Renwick, who does an amazing job. And together, Amanda Parsons, our communications director, and some of our leadership have essentially landed on particularly a social media strategy where we're going to focus on state and municipal issues. We're not going to venture into national, hot button topic type stuff very often. For one, LP National's already doing that. So if we find something interesting, we'll share it. But we want to talk about stuff that's specific to Illinois or specific to cities within Illinois. And two, we automatically steer clear of any issues that we know are going to be divisive within the libertarian community. So you're not going to find any any abortion posts on our state social media. I don't know why I always go back to that. It seems to be the one that libertarians like to argue about the most. But so that's not to say that we never post anything that is divisive. It's just not internally divisive. It separates us from the two old parties and what their messaging is on a subject. And there are some people who get frustrated with that we don't take a stronger stance on certain things. But we are under a big tent philosophy in Illinois, and I think a lot of other state parties operate in that same fashion. Beggars can't be choosers. If somebody agrees with 80% of the libertarian platform, they can come play ball with us. That's totally fine, and we're not going to shame them for the other 20. So, not that those issues are always the same, but they tend to be somewhat similar, and we get folks who want us to be, of course, want us to be more aggressive on certain issues. But once they kind of understand that, our end game, at the end of the day, a political party is trying to get candidates elected, and we need volunteers to do that. We're not going to recruit with messaging that tears us apart. So that's kind of what our strategy's been.
Good advice. Dalton, what are you guys doing up there for messaging?
Oh, as far as we go, I mean, I pretty much would echo Steve there. We try not to be too divisive or too edgy. I'm sure I don't have to point out any of the recent memes that have even come out today from some of the guys out in Pennsylvania, we're not trying to be unprofessional and we're not trying to upset people too much. We want to put out consistent libertarian messaging, and it's okay to goad people when it comes to certain status beliefs. But we want to be professional, and we want people to look to libertarian ideals. And there's a way to do that. There's a way not to do that. And of course, there's always going to be disagreement when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, we are a political party, and we want to be professional.
I must have missed the Pennsylvania one. I'm not familiar.
Fight the caucus. It upset some people.
All right, Robin, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Also, the Missouri Mises Caucus one, we had that taken down this morning too. Honestly, our secretary runs all of the social media. He was appointed to be our social media guy, so he does the Facebook, the MeWe, the Twitter, and he only posts things that are going on in the Missouri legislative and occasionally a very non-offensive meme. But we have very little going out at all. I'm not sure if it's my place, since I'm only the vice chair, to go onto social media and say, well, as the vice chair, this is how I feel about this topic. But we have not had much strong messaging or any messaging. So it's been noticed.
All right, well, that is too bad. Tony, what are you guys focusing on, or how do you handle your messaging?
Well, for a while now, it's been we have a membership and marketing committee, and it's been the chair of that committee that's been mostly running a lot of the messaging out of the LPWI social media accounts. However, he himself is not really a tech guy. He's an older gentleman. He doesn't really like using computers and such. So there's been some messaging that's come out, but there hasn't been a lot. Actually, over the last year, I personally was probably the loudest libertarian out of Wisconsin. I mean, that's kind of what, attracted the LPWI to me in general. But I think that when it comes down to it, what our focus now is, I actually created a press secretary position within that committee. Their role is going to be to engage the media, to create messaging. They are actually part of the Mises Caucus. I am not affiliated with any caucus. But one of the things that I came into this chair role with was unifying everybody, because I'll work with anybody as long as you're willing to work hard for liberty. So I kind of feel like each caucus has their own strong point. And the Mises Caucus, as long as it's respectful and it's, for the productivity of messaging for the LPWI and everything like that, like, I think they're actually great at messaging in a way that's effective and strong, as long as it's still respectful. And that's kind of one of the things where I kept coming down to with even talking with them, was just, let's keep it so that we're building the party and inspiring people. Let's be bold against the state, but let's not be, offending other humans. Let's not be offending our fellow, people here in our streets and our communities. And like, that's not what we want to do. Our goal isn't to try to, be as edgy and cringy as possible. It's to inspire people to stand up against the state. And so, as far as the messaging going forward for the LPWI, that's kind of one of the main focuses I want to really direct it into, is inspiring people to stand up, rise up, and be free, and a lot less infighting, a lot less, oh, how can we be as crazy and as, boisterous as the other or whatever. Like, so that's kind of where we're at.
Jared.
Yeah. Our state level messaging, a lot of that is driven by our district coordinator, Amy Weimer. She lives in my house with me. But we also have our county level affiliates and regional affiliates. They all have their own teams as well that they release stuff and make content. But we also have communications between the county and the district coordinator. It's like, hey, is this a good idea? Run it by. We've got, once again, communication is so important. Just like, owning somebody doesn't pay off for us in the long run. So check this. Does this make sense? Did I spell the words right? Just basic stuff like that. So good communications between the county level, the state level, and then for our state central committee, we have discussions. We've multiple lines of communications open, where if somebody wants to get something out there, say, hey, what about an idea like this? Or I'd like to say something. Everybody works real well together. So that helps to get some messaging, so it's not just a handful of people's responsibilities, but trying to expand it as always, so of scary and risky. It's like, well, what do we do? Like we've discussed doing a podcast, like, man, that's a lot of work for people who are already doing a lot of work. But stuff like that, sort of giving up control to lower levels, but also, helping them with that is important, because, liberal tiers or chasing off Republicans doesn't pay off for us, because we, maybe have different methods, but I think we still have a lot of the same goals for what we want for our families and our country.
Yeah, for sure. Common ground, Larry Sharp has that 80-20 rule that kind of Tony had mentioned earlier, but I think it's easier to find things that we agree with people about, but I mean, people tend to always want to find things that we disagree on and then magnify your disagreements while kind of ignoring the things you agree on. And we're kind of in a unique situation in 2021 where I think people recognize the problems that we're all facing, but they have different ideas on how to, solutions for those problems. The Democrats, they don't see the government as being the problem, whereas we kind of do. But we can still kind of agree, I think, if we go out of our way to agree, we can agree with them on some things. Like one thing that I kind of, it's, like I'm not in favor of the government issuing minimum wage laws, but I certainly can empathize with somebody who is struggling to pay their health care, that's struggling to pay their housing, that's only making $9 an hour. We just have different solutions to those problems. Like we would recognize that the government is devaluing our currency. They made our healthcare exponentially more costly. They've done the same thing with housing. They're just, but we can definitely go out of our way to agree more and disagree a little less, I think. We're getting pretty close here. We're at about the 2-hour mark, which is usually about what we go. I had asked earlier if anybody had any questions that they would like to ask anybody else, or Dalton had a question earlier. He said, how do other state parties go about helping their members build infrastructure and local affiliates? Any particular advice that you got for that? We'll go with Mike, or anybody can jump in.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it is be able to give them the roadmap to do so. Be able to have communication, engage with them, make sure you have other individuals that are engaged with them as well. Help them find a way to get out there and communicate with the communities and grow that party, and then ultimately hopefully become an affiliate if they're not already one. If they are one and it's kind of died off, let's rebuild that affiliate. So I think that's a lot of it. Give them a roadmap, have a kit for them from an affiliate standpoint that will show them this is exactly the steps you'll need to do. I've been throwing in a couple extra steps as if it's a brand new affiliate. Go out there and don't just create a county meeting, because people aren't going to want to come to a county meeting. Have a couple social meetings where you're just going out there and talking about the Libertarian Party and talking about local politics and grabbing a couple drinks and BSing and trying to get people engaged in those counties or localities. And at that point, after a couple of those, maybe get a meeting going. Hopefully we got some interest to be able to have some people who actually want to be elected officials at the affiliate. And then you can go through those steps to become officially affiliated with the state. So I think it's a matter of just trying to get that engagement and ultimately maintaining that engagement, which is the hardest part.
Yeah, I would also say too, to that point, I think we also need to give members something to be proud of being a part of. We need to be out there setting up protests, holding events, letting people in the state know that our parties are actually there. And it's exciting to be part of us. You know, it's not like Mike said, it's not just some boring meeting you can just go sit at. There's that too for the people who love boring meetings, but we also can go out and do exciting things, you know, and I think that'll help really drum up a lot of attention to what we're doing and keep people really involved.
So my state, we have a little bit of money set aside to make what we call an affiliate in a box. That way we can give them enough money so that they can buy a folding table, a little pop-up tent, a banner, and some other supplies so that they can go to their county fairs or their local fall fun festival, carnival, or whatever it is, and set something up just to give information and have somebody sit there. I encourage them to let people argue with you, because you're not just talking to that person, but anybody else listening and anybody else watching. And, obviously be friendly about it. But we have that happen a lot at the state fair. I'm having people come to tell me how dumb we are. And I'm like, oh, well, come over here and tell me everything that you think's wrong about us. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Again, just have some... have them get with people who've already made state or county affiliates, but also have kind of an outline of whatever constitution or documents that they have to have for it. Somebody in the state party should be good at that and getting them signed up with your Secretary of State or whatever organization that it's required to be a part of. But we're trying to get that done here too, growing.
We actually just got our first state affiliate or local affiliate started out on the western side of the state. And basically I did exactly what Mike said. I started holding social events and beating people out the bars, having drinks, talking about liberty, stalking a few people on Facebook, sending a few messages, sharing one of their memes. And that's just kind of how it seemed to be working. I was just curious how everybody else went about it.
Yeah. I invite people to get drunk in my backyard or play D&D.
Well, I'll actually be moving to Missouri here this summer, so maybe I can help out a little.
Yeah, if you're in Kansas City, we have bonfires where I've got 30 or 40 people passing out all over my house on occasion.
I'm sure the purse will be there, right?
I have to buy a new purse. It didn't make it back from last year. There was a very bumpy ride back, and I wanted to not make a mess in her van.
Thought maybe the TSA got it.
Say we've got SOP, standard operating procedures of here's the steps you need to follow. So they have a literal checklist of what to do, some suggestions, links and information, who to talk to, provide them with the technological backbone. So, hey, here's an email. You can, your county chair can have an email, whatever your officers, whatever you need. We can help you get that set up, show you how to use it. Provide a structure so the less they have to figure out on their own, the better.
And then one more thing that I'm going to tack on. We're doing all these things too. We've got a template for bylaws and all that type of stuff, and some support when chapters are first formed. We're planning at our convention this year to do more affiliate-based training instead of just speakers and panels. So what our convention is going to be like this year, we're going to have two events going on at the same time. One will be kind of a panel with speakers. The other one will be like boot camp for local affiliates. Everything from press to petitioning and running candidates and working with your county clerk, all that type of stuff. So consider making that training something formal that you might do at a yearly event.
Yeah, I think the county affiliate's definitely a tough one. It's something we want to continue or try to grow up here too. But I think the hardest part about it is, whenever we have executive committee elections every 2 years, people are more willing to volunteer on the state level than they would on the county level, because it's like the state organization already exists. And it's really hard to get somebody to commit to building something because that's what you're asking them to do. It's like, hey, do you want to build this affiliate? So maybe, one thing we could do better is just making sure that they know we have our full support. It's like, we will help you do this. We will show up to your first few meetings. We will help you get off the ground floor. But yeah, there's definitely, it's definitely a hard sell when you're asking someone because they got to be really motivated, really, really passionate to just create a county affiliate out of nowhere. It's like, all right, I'm gonna do. But yeah, it's definitely good advice.
Yep. Another thing I'd recommend is look for the low-hanging fruit. When you go out there, you have those individuals that are signing up on the volunteer page for every single item. Reach out to those individuals, and you should be reaching out to all the volunteers anyway that are signing up. At least I know from our end, we have the volunteer link on our LPIA page. But reach out to them and try to get them engaged. But you can find those low-hanging fruit, those people that are like, I'm so excited to get involved. Grab a hold of them, keep them engaged. Don't let go of them, and follow up with them on a monthly basis. One thing when I was in the 2nd district, I tried to grow up as many county affiliates as we could down in the 2nd district of Iowa. And part of that was doing a monthly meeting. So that way they maintained engagement. So that's what I've been trying to work with. I'm trying to branch out to the regional or to the district reps here locally. But look for that low-hanging fruit, those people that are super engaged, are constantly commenting on your stuff in a positive manner, in a manner that you think that they would be leaders for the party. So, and then from that end, go out there to those county fairs and try to recruit people. Go out to the bars and try to recruit people. It's a lot easier to get those first few counties in there first.
All right. Did anyone else have any questions that they wanted to ask, or if
No,
not?
I do want to mention Iowa. You guys are going to have the candidate training in September, led by Kara.
Yep, and it is fantastic. If any of you all have been there, I know a few of you guys were there. The last one a couple years ago. It's ultimately what kind of spurred me to go into running for chair. So that really got me motivated and got me going. And I've been encouraging all of my district reps. I don't want to try to get everybody in from Iowa there, but because I want to make sure y'all have some people there represented as well. And it looks like we have a good amount of people coming in already. So yes, the regional training, go sign up for it because it is amazing. It's great for candidates. It's great for leadership. It's great for affiliate building. You'll come out of there fully motivated.
Yeah, I went to the one in 2018, and that was a lot of fun, and I did learn a lot. I did register for the one in September again already, so I do plan on being there. Well, if nobody else has any questions, I guess I had one last question, and this is just more of anything you would like to brag about in your state or upcoming events that you want to promote, like the training in September in Iowa, or just anything you want to plug before we head out of here.
I always up for plugs. I'm good with that. So I've already talked about a few of them. The LPIA store, it's lpiastore.org. That is our new store that we have up. A lot of great items on there. Of course, lpia.org/donate/volunteer. You can become a member. Everything along those lines. We can always use help. We can be able to get out and spread liberty a little bit better. And obviously, I did mention our Libertarian Party of Iowa Liberty Speakeasy that is on Thursday evenings at 7:00. And guess what? 2 people right here in this group are going to be on this week's show. We have Greg Baldwin and Tony Moen both going to be on there. And we will probably have a lot of fun discussions about current events. And it's always a good time. Myra Mateka, if anybody knows Myra, she is outstanding. She's my co-host. So I'm going to plug that as well. That's on our Facebook page. We send it out directly from there. But other than that, we're going to have a lot of events coming up this summer, some candidate training all throughout the summer in different areas of Iowa. And I mentioned earlier our community cleanup event on the 15th and 16th. So that's about it.
It's a lot. Steve, what do you got going on you want to plug?
Yeah, I'll do one plug here. Mark your calendars now. October 8th and 9th, Kankakee, Illinois, State Convention. Justin Amash, keynote speaker at our banquet. Spike Cohen speaking at our lunch. I mean, there are gonna be some high-profile libertarians in Illinois this year for the convention. So, especially the folks. I better see some Wisconsin folks down there, man. It's the Kankakee's knocking on the border almost. It's like an hour and a half, but still, it's gonna be a great time. And of course, we've got a whole bunch of other stuff planned too, training, and also lots of other speakers and panels and stuff. Plus, we'll be selecting our gubernatorial candidate at that convention too. So coming out in October, second weekend, and have a good time in Illinois.
Awesome. Dalton.
Yeah, May 22nd at the Ramkota in Bismarck, we'll be having our annual state convention. And, the more the merrier. We got a lot of plans coming up for the next couple of years. There's going to be a little bit of turnover, some new faces entering the group or the state party, and there's a lot coming up. So we'd like to see as many people there as we can get.
Well, darn, we just had ours last weekend. Actually, somehow we kept all the same officers. No one ran against us, and I don't know if that's a congratulations or condolences to us, but we all remained. Other than that, the only other thing we have going on this year so far is the State Fair in August. If you want to come and sweat your buns off and say hello, we'll be in Jeff City. But sorry, no, not Jeff City. We'll be in somewhere in the center of the state. I know that's useful, but thanks.
Sounds good. What's Wisconsin got going on?
Well, earlier, just a point of bragging. Earlier, I mentioned the convention this year ended up becoming huge. It was literally the largest state convention in our history. We raised the most money. We had some of the greatest speakers. It was an amazing weekend. So just a point of bragging there. As far as plugging, the LPWI is currently, my wife is the new event coordinator for the state party, and she's facilitating an event this summer, August 13th through the 15th. That's going to be held here in Door County. We're going to be having Spike back and Adam Kokesh and a few other people. It's going to be for fundraising, membership building, and just all around fun. So that's something to, mark your calendars down for. Otherwise, I personally run a podcast, Life and Liberty. We have a lot of really great conversations twice a week. So if you want to check that out as well, it's something that I even like to do, as Mike likes to do, to help bring attention to the state party and the conversations and the progress that are happening right here in our state. So.
Oh, the good news is Nebraska only has a convention every other year, so I don't have to partake of that for this year. But it's already getting planned. But we'll let you know when we get further onto that. So I guess we'll try to come up with some maybe words of wisdom. I guess I think all of our state chairs have mentioned repeatedly about our volunteers and how their efforts are so important. Everybody has 4 or 5 hats, and generally will do what you ask them of them, even if it's too much already. So I guess maybe give each other a little grace. And most people involved are doing their best. And I guess Region 6 is probably the best region, isn't it?
It sure seems like it.
I do have a question. So do other chairs, do y'all have, we have like a little awards that we give out, and somehow I ended up on that list. But also not just at the convention, but occasionally, like LaDonna over in St. Louis, she just does an immense amount of volunteering. She's the St. Louis County chair, and she was really heavily involved in the Jorgensen campaign and did lots of other things. So I just I had like flowers and chocolates delivered to her house with a little note. So I didn't know if everyone, just the people who do an outstanding amount of work, just even a small bit of encouragement or a nice word here and there, or a shout out on the Facebook page or something. I think that really helps keep their motivation going.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta keep people happy. So South Dakota, I guess we already talked about Freedom Fest moved from Las Vegas to Rapid City this year. So if you guys are looking for an excuse to go visit Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills and whatnot, come see us in July. The National Party's got a booth there. The State Party has a booth there. So that's going to be a good time. And what my hope for that event is, we don't have a county affiliate in Rapid City, and so that's kind of my whole goal for that. That's a 4-day event, and I was thinking that we're going to plan a meetup, like either on Friday or Saturday, so that as people are coming to the booth the entire week, and wanting to hear more, we're like, hey, we're meeting up this Saturday, come out. And so, yeah, that's my goal, is hopefully by the time that's done, we actually have a new county affiliate out there, because that's the second largest city in the state. And so it's kind of shameful that we don't have one out there. Then we have an annual barbecue at the end of summer. That's always a good time. Just hang out, eat food, drink beer. And then this one isn't our event, but the National Party is talking about, in the process of planning a 50th anniversary party out in Colorado in August too. So a lot of stuff going on in August, a lot of stuff going on all summer long, to be honest. A lot of libertarian events. If you can't find some liberty-oriented event within a couple 100 miles of you, I don't think you're looking very hard this summer. But if anyone have anything else, otherwise, thank you guys all for coming on.
I just want to add, I did find out that 50th anniversary party is the 27th through the 28th. It's the last weekend of August for anybody out in Colorado. That's when that's going to be held.
Well, then it looks like our end of summer barbecue is going to be in September this year. We always kind of struggle with that because we want to do it like at the end of the summer type of deal. So it's like, but then the first weekend in September, you got Labor Day. And so that's not really a good weekend to do it. And so, yeah, just a lot of stuff.
Make sure it's not the 18th and 19th, because that's the regional training.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy September.
But you got to get it in before your first snow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't want to be out there grilling and it's 25. Nah. All right, well, I appreciate. Thank you guys all for coming on. We'll have to do it again. I learned some things, and a couple of you I had met at the regional training or at the national convention, but some of you had never met before. So it's always good to, now we personally know the leaders of the free states.
Working on it.
Thanks for having me.
Right?
Yes, thank you.
I'm just here by default. I snuck in. Who gave me that link?
Did anyone, so here we'll just BSing around real quick before we go. Did anyone ever think that when they went to their first convention or when they first got involved with the party, that here that a couple years later they would be, in charge, the state chair of their party? Because I didn't.
No.
It was not the 5-year plan.
I joined the state party officially a year ago, so.
Yes, I had no plan.
Nobody had it on their 5-year plan?
I was more involved with trying to help candidates and stuff like that, and grow in that aspect from a management standpoint, I guess you could say, or get involved with my own candidacy. So, yeah, I had no plans on going to be a chair at all, and it's been eye-opening.
Yeah, you don't really know until you just dive in. So maybe the guy after me or gal or whoever has it easier. But yeah, you don't know what you're getting into.
Well, isn't that what they say? As long as you leave it better than leave it better off than how you found it. So I think if we all do that, I think we're going to be in good shape. All right. Well, thanks guys for coming on. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you. It's great to meet you all.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. Bye.
Take it easy.